Hey everyone, today we have topic 7-6 reteaching. The objective for this topic is to divide a decimal by another decimal. So this is just going to be a continuation of kind of what we've been doing in the past two lessons. So our goal here is to find 4 and 96 hundredths, or 4.96, divided by 8 tenths, or 0.8. So I've set up this problem both ways. We've got the problem up top and the left to right kind of written way, and we also have the bracket down below. And I want you to take notice that we have a decimal in our divisor. So that's the very first thing we need to fix before we can start doing this problem. And in topic, I believe it was the last one, 7-5, we learned how to change our decimal divisor into a whole number. So here we just have one decimal place. The 8 tenths is the only decimal that we have in our divisor. So we just need to take 8 tenths and multiply it by 10. That's going to take our decimal point from right in front of the 8 and put it right after the 8. So that's going to change it into a whole number, the number 8. Now, we also need to multiply our dividend, the 4.96 by 10, so that we are staying consistent through the whole problem. So when we take 4 and 96 hundredths times 10, this is going to move our decimal from between the 4 and the 9. It's going to move it over between the 9 and the 6. So our product for this problem is going to be 49, that's a funky 9, 49 and 6 tenths. So now that we have our two numbers, we have our divisor, which is no longer a decimal, we have the whole number, we're going to kind of find an estimate. So we're looking at 49 and 6 tenths divided by 8. So I'm going to think about multiples of 8 that are really close to 49. And I think about as close as we could get is 48, because that is a multiple of 8, and I know that when I divide it by 8, it's going to come out evenly, and it's going to come out 6 when I do this division. So an estimate for this problem, before we even get started actually figuring it out, is going to be 6. So we know that if our answer is close to 6, we are on the right track. So now let's actually work the problem out and see what our final answer is. So here we have our kind of, I guess you could call them updated numbers. Our decimal, which started out as 8 tenths, has been changed into a whole number, and we multiplied to change that. And our dividend has also been adjusted for that as well. So now we're just going to follow the rule we would when we had a decimal dividend, which we still have a decimal here. We're just going to take that decimal, just like we would in a normal problem, and we are going to move it straight up into our quotient. So our decimal is going to go right there, right above where it is in the dividend, and then we're just going to kind of ignore it and divide normally, as if this was 496 divided by 8. So 8 cannot go into 4 at all, so I'm going to look at how many times it can go into 49, and we just talked about that on the last slide. It can go in 6 times, and when you multiply 8 times 6, you get 48. When you subtract these two numbers, you get 1. Then we're going to go ahead and bring our 6 down. Gives us 16. 8 goes into 16 2 times. When I multiply those two numbers, I get 16. And when I subtract, I get 0. So fortunately, this one divided out evenly, and we didn't have to continue dividing at all. So our final answer here, our actual product, is 6 and 2 tenths. I do want to point out, however, if maybe this problem went a little bit differently, maybe this number didn't divide evenly, all you would do, since we're big and fancy in 5th grade, is we would add a 0 here and continue to divide. Just like you would, like we talked about on a different video, I'm not sure which one it was, you would just keep adding zeros until it did come out even, or if you saw a repeating pattern. Alright, so let's think back to our estimate that we found at the very beginning of this video. We rounded the 49.6 to 48, and we divided by 8, and we got 6. Our actual quotient, however, was 6.2. So just comparing these two numbers, we can see that our estimate was really close to our actual quotient. Therefore, we can be pretty certain that our actual quotient that we found is correct. So just a good idea to check between an estimate and your quotient just to make sure you did all of the math correctly. All right, now before I let you go, I just want to give you a couple of reminders. When you're dividing one decimal by another decimal, you're going to follow the same rules as you would if you just had one decimal. So if you had the problem 6.2 divided by 3, this is a dividend decimal. This is the one where the rule is to simply take this decimal and move it up to your quotient. We did that in this problem, the problem we just did. You're just going to follow the same rules. However, let's assume that this problem was 62 divided by 3/10. Okay, this is when we have a decimal divisor. The rule for when you have a decimal divisor is to get rid of this decimal by multiplying it by a power of 10. Okay, we did that as well at the very beginning. We started out with 8/10, and we had to multiply that by 10 and our dividend by 10 as well to make sure they were staying consistent with each other before we could start dividing. When you're dividing two decimals, so say this was 3/10 and 6.2, okay, you're going to follow the same rules as you would with a decimal dividend and a decimal divisor. Just a quick reminder, it's very much the same process. It's just a matter of keeping all of the procedures straight. Remember, take your time, rewind this video as many times as you need, rewatch as many parts as you want, and if you still have questions, please ask your teacher.